Hey, it's Mike Brennan, and well, we're putting together a little show today. I have with me Tim Beck, who's pretty well known in the cannabis industry, and Blain Techtold, who's the president of iHemp, which is the Industrial Hemp Society Association of Michigan. I mean, and so we're kind of winging it today since it's our first show. We're not, what's my background? Well, I was a co-partner of 420 Post. I've since left there to focus more on some other stuff. But I've been covering the cannabis industry for about since 2018, so I have a pretty good understanding what's going on. We still cover it at my other website, which is MITechNews.com. But Tim, why don't you explain a little bit to folks again your background, what you're doing, and then we'll go to Blain.
Well, I was one of the early leaders in Michigan in the movement to get marijuana legalized and legitimate, in the state. I started out, I created a ballot initiative in Detroit in 2024, Michigan Coalition for Compassionate Care. We legalized medical marijuana in Detroit in 2004. We won at the polls, ballot initiative. And that kind of got the ball rolling. And I've been at the forefront of legalization until I worked my way out of a job in 2018 when marijuana became legal. I had no real interest, in going into the business. It's an altruistic kind of endeavor. And I'm now a moderator of a listserv called Safer Michigan Coalition. It goes back to 2009. We started that so people could get could get a daily news feed on everything that's going on about marijuana and the campaign and everything to legalize it. We wanted to have a source of unbiased, um, legitimate information. And so that still continues to this day. We have over 400 people on the listserv now. They're business people, they're activists, they're government officials, attorneys, CPAs, anybody that has an interest in cannabis issues and want to get the very latest news. And it's also an interactive forum where people can actually, make comments and respond and everything like that. It's,
No, are you encouraging the audience to approach you about joining your listserv?
Well, absolutely. You'd be more than welcome. What you need to do is let me know just who you are. Just send me an email, and I can get you on. Otherwise, the only way you can get on, you got to be nominated. It's a private listserv. It's a private entity. Okay, and you get on by being nominated by a member in good standing, or you can be added on by myself or our other moderator, Chuck Green.
And your
My
email address is?
name is Tim Beck, TR Beck 1, okay, numeral 1 at gmail.com.
All right, Blain, let's talk about the iHemp. Now, some people in the cannabis industry may not be familiar with it, so go ahead, tell us all about it.
Well, thanks, Mike, and thanks. I feel honored being on the first show. Wow, I just don't know how to handle that. Wow, it's great. Um, so this all started. iHemp started back in 2018 when industrial hemp became legal to be able to grow, and I started because I've been doing a lot of background work for my farmers. I used to do consulting work. I still do consulting work for farmers, and I couldn't find any information on it. So one thing led to another. I met Dave Crable, who's another founder of it, and John Freeman, and we formed iHemp Michigan for education and outreach for industrial hemp. And you can find a lot of information that we've had on ihempmichigan.com. We've got all of our expos and education sessions on there. So that's how I started into this thing. And it's been quite a ride for sure and going on things. So looking forward to what's going to happen in the near future. We've got some real challenges coming up this year for sure. So especially from Washington D.C.
All
Yeah.
right, well, we'll get into that momentarily. One of the things I wanted to start off with is cannabis sales. The Cannabis Regulatory Agency just came out a day or two ago with the February sales, and that was slightly higher from January, but still 234.6 million is down about 6% from February of last year. Uh, and of course, medical sales are infinitesimal. They hardly even show up anymore. So it's all what folks are buying at dispensaries. Now, we're supposed to call them provisioning centers according to a new CRA bulletin. So we'll
You saw that
honor
too,
the
huh?
CRA there, right? One of the things that really leaped out at me was I know in the beginning a lot of these cannabis companies were pegging their business plans to $4,000 a pound cannabis. Well, unfortunately, now it's down to $945 a pound. So that puts a real hole in your business plan. And we're a lot of the smaller players that just don't have the capital to withstand this consolidation. Well, they're leaving the market or getting bought up by bigger players that do want to be able to further that consolidation. But let's talk a little bit about that real quick.
One of the things I would suggest for people, if they haven't seen it, the CRA had their annual meeting today, or excuse me, the quarterly meeting today, and there's some very information that Director Hannah brought out, so they might want to view that. It wasn't a very long meeting today because there wasn't a lot of people there, so it's probably a 15, 20-minute thing, but he talks a lot about what they're doing to try to get that lab going in Lansing. So that's a good thing. I think people should look at there for sure.
Okay, and Tim?
And Tim?
Yeah, well, I have a thought about that. This was a terrible, terrible mistake that the legislature and the governor made by doing this tax. Prior to their vote, the Michigan state budget, House budgeting, whatever, something House budget authority, basically predicted. They said that it will cost about 14%. They specifically said that. And House Fiscal Agency, that's right. It would be about 14% decline, demise of businesses, and possibly even loss of tax revenue. And I'm
Just
a
to
little
set this up, Tim, we didn't. He's talking about the 24% tax, wholesale
yeah.
tax that just got implemented on January 1st. But go ahead.
Yeah, well, that's right, and this was predicted, and I think unfortunately it's down like about 5%. There's people not renewing their licenses, and I just only see it getting worse until this is defeated, perhaps in court, and that might be a while. But it's not a surprise. It shouldn't be any surprise. They predicted, the House Fiscal Agency predicted that from day one, even before they voted. The legislature still did it anyway.
Yeah, and what the governor said she wanted to do was use the money, which would be roughly $500 million a year, give or take, to fix the roads. Not sure why the cannabis industry should be responsible for fixing the roads, but that's what she did. What do you think, Blain?
Well, certainly was a stab in the back. Absolutely. They picked an easy target, and I've and what they're doing here is wrong. Um, the same thing happened. We tried to get some with the House Regulatory Committee. There are some bills on the Senate side, 599 through 602, that people should review. It passed the Senate and went over to the House, but in that bill, we tried to get some logic on how much they were going to make the milligrams per serving that are allowed. And we had an agreement at the at when we were at the committee, and then when it went over to the House, or excuse me, to the Senate floor for voting, they changed all of that. So you can't even trust what you're agreeing on with the committees, that it's going to be the same as when it gets into the House or gets into the floor for voting. So um, really a bad thing here for sure. It'll be interesting to see where it all plays out. There has been quite a few numbers that have been thrown around, and we've all talked about numbers here of how much we're going to lose. But the bottom line is, there are people on you see it on social media every day where dispensaries or provisioning centers are closing down. People are losing their jobs. It's happening everywhere. Absolutely.
And while we're on that topic, let's also delve into what's going on in DC, because I know you're not heavily involved in that, but you're pretty well up to speed. For the folks that don't know, why don't you tell them what's going
All
to
right.
happen to
So
the
what
hemp
happened?
industry? Yeah.
Yep. What happened back in November? There was a little crisis called the government shutdown, and so they found a way to open it back up. But what they did, and the congressman knew exactly what he was doing. They threw this bill on the end of that because they knew that the budget had to get passed and this would get done. So what they're going to do is on November 26th of next year, the per serving milligrams per container is going to reduce down to 0.4%. And that's going to eliminate about 95% of the current CBD products that are available in tincture form, gummy form, that kind of stuff. There's a lot of things that are going on behind the scenes right now. There's a couple of amendments that have been made to the Farm Bill, for one, regarding this, and we're asking for a 2-year extension on this so we can get it figured out. The first thing that was supposed to happen, and hasn't happened, was that within 90 days of November 26th, the FDA was supposed to come up with a list of the cannabinoids that they say were not non-intoxicating cannabinoids, and then the bad ones, the intoxicating ones. And they haven't come up with that yet. But we need to go back to the beginning of why this whole thing started. This whole thing started because people knew, and I don't think anybody really thought this would happen, but they knew how to separate these molecules and make some intoxicating CBD products, or at least the feeling of intoxication, because intoxication is different for everybody. And so that's how this whole thing started. And what's happening is minors are being able to go to the local corner store and be able to buy these products that have an intoxicating effect or effect on people. And so that's the real issue behind this. There's really an easy, to me, there's a real easy way to fix this. Okay. We just age gate this. If you're going to buy a CBD product, okay, you have to be above a certain age to be an adult, 18, 21, whatever that is. And then it's not illegal to have the product in your system, you're taking it, but now it puts the responsibility back on the parent. If they want to use this medicine for their child, for whatever symptoms they may have that they get a relief from, now it's the parent that has that responsibility to take that. And so I think to me, it's a really easy, simple fix here without going through all this other stuff. But that's why this whole thing has come up, because we've got players out there that are putting out a product. And we've asked for FDA to regulate this since 2018, and they just haven't done their job. So that's why we're in this. Where we're at now.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So
Well,
as it now stands, now you're saying when we talked about this before that there might be an extension, because otherwise this November, that's pretty much it, right?
Correct. So it's when the new regulations go into effect. I mean, it's not that it couldn't change after that, but we're asking for more time because this is uh, $1 billion. I can't remember. I got the dollar amount here. Hold on. Anyways, it's a very large industry right now, and it is going to be. Now, it's also going to have some effect, even though people don't say it, it isn't. It is going to have some effect on the grain and the fiber as well, um, to make sure that the products that come out from that are below that level of THC. Most of them will be on the grain and fiber side, but it's going to affect a little bit there too as well. Um, so right now, this is a $28.4 billion industry is what it is right now.
Yeah, I'm
There's
sure it employs a lot of
140,000
people too,
jobs.
right? How
Yeah,
much?
328,000 jobs,
Wow.
and it generates $13.2 billion in wages. So this is
Wow.
not a small thing,
Yeah.
not a small thing at all. And we
You're
have 238 days, 11 hours, 38 minutes, and 48 seconds. We have a countdown clock.
well,
Um,
but
if you can be more precise, let us know. So,
okay, I will.
yeah.
but
What do you think, Tim? What's the hot?
here's the thing. Okay, Blain, what you said is eminently sensible in terms of keeping it out of the hands of minors. No sane, rational person believes minors should be buying this stuff and getting high and this and that. Anybody can agree on that. The problem that we have, it goes deeper than that. There was the Pew Institute came out with a poll. I posted about this on Safer on the listserv, where they did a survey and it found that 23% of the U.S. population believes that the use of marijuana, and I presume get anything, is immoral. Immoral is the term, which means it has almost a religious kind of connotation. These people are fanatics. They absolutely will do anything, to stop and make it illegal or to hinder the industry. And that's another thing that we have to deal with now. We did go in depth on it, and it turned out people, generally speaking, older people, your older crowd, senior citizens, so to speak, and people with less education, less educated, population living in rural areas and elsewhere, are the generally speaking make up that 23%. They're fanatics. They're just absolute fanatics. They're fighting real hard. And that woman that triggered the thing from Illinois, a Congresswoman Mary something or other, that came up with that idea.
Yep.
She's hardcore, and a lot of her followers are hardcore. That I just want to throw that out, as to maybe what we're facing. I think there's still hope, and I don't think the industry is going to go out of business anyway because it'll just go underground. Period.
Yeah, and that's the bottom line that's going to happen. And there's just it's not going to go away. So instead of embracing it like we should be doing, and for the help that this cause is for a lot of people without having to go through pharmaceutical stuff. I mean, it's amazing, you know.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I have a little tiny bit of experience of this because I used to. I mean, I took my first hit of weed in 1970 in a dorm room at my alma mater, and I never quit. Okay, and I've always been a moderate user, whatever. Okay, fine. I just like basically homegrown weed. But bottom line, I used to write a column for a defunct magazine called the Michigan Marijuana Report, and I found out about the Delta 8 phenomena, and so I decided to do a column on it. And to be a good journalist, I had to try it for myself. Okay. And I really liked it. This Delta 8 gummies with 25 milligram. I like it just fine. I'm an older person now. I don't want some intense high and that kind of thing. And this person, I'm not going to give any details, but my source, I get it off a website. Okay. And it's headquartered outstate. Okay. In another state that doesn't have it. I just send in my order, do my credit card thing, and bam, it's in the mail in a couple days. So, I mean, I don't know whether I mean, that has to be representative of a lot of stuff that's going on. It's probably going to get even more, I would think. And they're doing that too because they don't really want to be regulated. They're trustworthy people and everything like that. And they moved their business out of Michigan when the legislature passed a law saying that any hemp type product, gummies, had to be sold through a dispensary. Now, they didn't want to go through a dispensary. They didn't want to be regulated. Okay, I can understand that.
Or
So
taxed.
I'm not saying it's not going to go away with this law. And God help them, let them try to enforce it.
right, that's yeah. And as I say, if we just age gate it, it's all fine, right? We don't have to worry about the percentage of it. If it's a if you're going to buy a CBD product, you got to be 18, or
Mm-hmm.
21. Again, I don't care what case
Sure.
we go for,
Sure.
But that seems to take care of the problem. Again, it puts the responsibility. We already have that in place, right? We're already doing that with liquor, right?
Mm-hmm.
And all these THC beverages that want to come into the industry too. The alcohol
Mm-hmm.
industry is losing a lot of money because people just
Yeah.
aren't drinking as much, right? And so they want to come up with a product that that people will buy. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's what so
Well,
that's
and it's
the big
younger
issue,
folks that are gravitating. It's younger people that are gravitating to these beverages. They're kind of dissing alcohol. It's not as popular, but it's become more and more of a component in their life, like
Mhm.
various CBD drinks and things like that. Yeah,
Yeah,
and it's a
yeah,
growing market.
yeah, and it wouldn't have to be a lot of extra, enforcement or oversight on it because again, we've
Mhm.
already got that in place. The gentleman behind the counter that sells the beer knows he's got to check the ID.
Yeah,
So it'd be simple to me going through all this, but so
yeah.
yeah, so there are some other bills. One of the things for hemp that we're trying to do is save some farmers some money, and we're really at a disadvantage compared to other states with trying to increase the industrial hemp acres here. It costs $1,250 new. If you're late, it's $1,350, but $1,250 just to get a permit, just to be able to for the pleasure of growing industrial hemp. Doesn't matter what size. If you're doing a quarter acre or 5 plants, or if you're doing 50 acres, right, or 100 acres, doesn't matter. And with the few growers that we have left in the community right now in Michigan, we've asked for this to go back to USDA. That'll save that money out of there, right? They won't have to pay that money. It's only $100, and it's good for 3 years with USDA. All the rules are still the same. Still got to be below, the 0.3% THC has to be tested. The grower has to do their background checks, all that kind of stuff. But it just saves us that money. MDART wants it to happen. CRA doesn't really care, but they want it to happen. The growers, the processors, all of us from Michigan want it to happen. These bills, Senate Bill 608, 609, and House Bill 5042 and 5043, um, make Michigan send it back to USDA. They've had these bills in both sides, and it's the Regulatory Affairs Committee. They've had these bills in there with MDART telling them, yeah, we want this to go back, and they won't bring the bills up for discussion and get it out to the floor for vote. I don't know what we can do. I imagine it's because we're not paying any money into anybody's reelection campaign, I guess, or the committee, whatever. But so they're just sitting on them. They've had them for 4 months. We wanted this done 2 months ago so that the farmers could plant and grow, and we could increase the production here in the state, and people will grow it. But that's what we're running into. Sorry for my
Well, you know,
rant
it's
there.
tough. It's tough to depend on the political class for anything. These legislators.
Yeah.
If you look at the
Yeah.
history of marijuana legalization in Michigan, it was all basically done by ballot initiative. We had to go directly to the people to get anything done. It's just a throwaway issue. You know, you talk to Republicans about marijuana reform, CBD. Oh my God! Well, we got to protect our guns. Abortion is out of control. You know, we're taxes are just extreme. We got to deal with that. We don't have time. And then you talk to a Democrat and they say, "Oh my God, the planet is dying. You know, kids are starving. You know, we're under the LGBT community is under attack, and we've got to defend ourselves, and we got to stop this guns. You know, we don't have marijuana. What are you talking about? Hemp? Come on. You know, and it's always very easy to put it off and not take a position. That's what we found in the past, and I suspect some of this same thing is going on.
You know, we're doing a lot of things. There's a lot of building going on this year with hemp products. April the 19th, up at the Strongheart Center in Sutton's Bay, there's going to be a free Hemp Creek workshop going on up there. There'll be more information. You can go to ihempmichigan.com and find out more information on that. We do want people to register because we're going to have food, but it's a free event. It's going to be great for everybody to come up and learn about how to build with hempcrete. So, yeah. But the thing too, Tim, is that, you know, what the other problem now I have is this. I worked with a committee. We agreed upon what the terminology was going to be for certain things, amount of the CBD, THC, the amount of allowable THC in products. We had a deal. Okay. All right. We won't fight it, right? We won't make a big deal of it. We won't do a campaign, anything else. That let's go with this. We'll go with it. And then it gets to the floor, and then they change the whole thing the way they wanted it, anyways. So again, you lose trust that way. I mean, you know, what are you going to do? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Makes it frustrating, that's for sure. I hope that I don't have this experience on the House side, but we'll see. The House hasn't brought any of this up either. They haven't brought either the 5042 or the other bills, 4964 through 4967, which mirror the Senate bills. They haven't brought those up, so I don't know. I guess on the other ones, I'd like them not to do anything, right? So at least we'll keep the status quo. But these other ones, 608, 609, we need to get the program back to USDA so we can expand this industry here. The state's not doing anything to support it, so they shouldn't get any money.
All right, let's begin to wrap her up. I promised everybody we'd get this done in about a half an hour. We're right around that mark. One more time, I'm Mike Brennan. If you have cannabis news that you want reported, and I have a very large audience, I have about 50,000 readers a month, give or take, send that to my last name, Brennan, at MITechNews.com. Tim, take it away. How do they reach you?
How does it reach me? Actually, your news is in the news, you know, from other sources. It's commonly quoted, especially this one you recently did about the licenses dropping and you know this and that. It was all over the internet. And what I do every day, I do my news feed. I spot it, and then wow, there it is. And then I just pass the story on to the safer listener. But it's around much more than what you might think. That's how I
Good
got it.
enough.
I'm not actually a subscriber. I need to be a subscriber, but I don't have any trouble picking up on it.
Okay, and once again, your email address is?
Yeah, TRBECK1, the numeral one at gmail.com.
All right, Blain. And if they want to reach you at iHemp, how do they do that?
The best way is info at ihempmichigan.com. That'll get the email right to me. And the other way is when you go there, we have a free newsletter. So just sign up to receive that, and then you'll get all the news about hemp in Michigan.
All right, sounds great. We'll be back again next week with the headliners, whatever headlines. We're going to try to make this as current as we can. This is our first